We have been discussing the Middle English poetry. It's a Poetry 1 book and paper 3 of MA English. So far, we have discussed about the characters of the Canterbury Tales. We have previously talked about all the characters that were the pilgrims, and they were traveling for some religious work, and then Chaucer met these characters and get involved himself in this journey. Chaucer actually described the era and framed it with his poetry, but he just gave it a shape in the form of poetry so that upcoming people understand about this era. What previously we discussed about was actually about the knight, the squire, and yeoman. These were the characters we talked about previously. And today we are going to talk about three more characters that were part of this poem, the prioress, the monk, and friar. These were three characters that was discussed in the Canterbury Tale by Chaucer. The prioress, let's discuss the first character, that is the prioress, woman actually. The prioress is one of the most fully described pilgrims. The character of the prioress is a woman of two faces. Actually, the Chaucer gives a lot of details about this woman. The prioress is one of the character of the Canterbury Tale, and she's a woman. Prioress is a woman, and Chaucer gives a lot of details about this woman in his poem. In the prologue part, that is the introductory part of this poem. Actually, this character was a double personality. She has double-minded personality, this prioress. She is introduced in the gender prologue as an aristocratic, genteel, pious nun, but she is a raving bigot because her tale is full of anti-Semitic attitudes. Okay. Uh, at first, she seems like a classy, polite, and holy woman. Hereby, aristocratic means that she belongs to a rich people, and she seems to pretend herself to be a noble, a gentle personality, a pious personality. Love some religious works. Pious nun means that, and but actually she is a raving bigot. She hates people, especially targeting the Jewish people inside her heart. She is very, she dislike Jewish people. Anti-Semitic attitude means that she keeps that negative attitudes toward Jewish people. Anti-Semitic is the word used specifically for the Jewish people here, and a group of people, Jewish, and she hates those people. It is what her tale says about her, however, that is at the core of Chaucer's intent in her depiction. She is shallow, unworldly, unchristian, and childish of character, and this is what Chaucer wants the reader to understand about her. The main point Chaucer wants us to see is that she is not actually a deep or holy person. She is immature and doesn't understand true Christian kindness. This is what about all about the uh, prioress, one of the Chaucer's Canterbury Tale character. Here the words aristocratic, genteel, pious, and raving bigot has been used for this lady. Aristocratic means she acts like she belongs to a rich, noble family, even though nuns are supposed to be humble. And then another word, genteel, she has very polite, fancy manners. She eats carefully and speak daintily. And then another word, pious, She appears to be very religious and devoted to God. And then another word, raving bigot, means that is the hidden side, I would say. A bigot is someone who hates a specific group of people for no good reason. And raving means she is extreme about it. She extremely hates those people. So Chaucer is actually showing a woman who is very careful not to drop a crumb of food. She is genteel up to the extent that she doesn't even want to drop a crumb of food, a piece of food, and cries if she sees a mouse in a trap. uh, like she's so sensitive and so pious that she, when see a mouse, a dead mouse, she cries, start crying so innocently, behaves. But inside she is not that. But in the story she expresses intense hatred and violence toward Jewish people. That is, here the word used for them is begot, of their intense hate. He actually calling her a hypocrite, someone who pretends to be kind and holy but carries a lot of hate in her heart. So this was all about the Paris character. And when we move to the actual writing of the Canterbury Tale, we will discuss sentence by sentence what actually Chaucer has written about this lady. Another character that we have here is the monk. Okay. The monk continues the series of incongruous church people. In this description, the narratorial voice often seems to be echoing the monk's comment in indirect quotation. The monk is another example of a religious person who doesn't fit their job. Just like we discussed about the prioress, the monk is also a religious personality. And here in this poem, Chaucer wants us to explore all kind of people, all people belonging to various departments of that time, their character, their rules, their behave, their attitude in that specific era. So, giving us the example of the monk of that time, he says that the narrator repeats what the monk says if he agrees with him. He has many horses at home. He does not respect his simple rule, but goes hunting instead of praying. The narrator expresses surprisingly strong support for the monk's chosen style of living. He ignores the strict rules of being a monk. Instead of staying inside to pray, he goes out to hunt and keeps expensive horses. The monk should not supposed to go for hunting. Rather, he is supposed to live in the, a kind of holy place and just uh, keep his time with the holy things and spend time on the making himself a virtuous person and uh, giving instruction to people about the religion and those kinds of things. But he has preferred to go outside for hunting and trying to to live a luxurious life that he shouldn't in actual. He ignores the strict rules of being a monk, actually. Instead of staying inside to pray, he goes out to hunt and keeps expensive horses in his house. The narrator, Chaucer the Pilgrim, says the monk is right to live a fun life, which is a joke because monks aren't supposed to live that way. It's a kind of, here the figure of speech has been used in this work. We will discuss these things in very detail further, but once we move to the actual writing of the poem, then we will discuss all these figure of speech also when comes in the text. What actually says about the monk is he hates his rule, number one, and he loves hunting, number two, and he looks rich, not holy, and the narrator trick is actually in the text is the Chasa Pilgrim says, I said his opinion was good. This is actually sarcasm, as I told you before. The figure of speech has been used here by uh, Chasa. The narrator is pretending to agree with the monk, saying, yeah, why should he stay inside and study? That's boring. By agreeing with the monk, bad behavior, Chaucer is actually showing the reader how corrupt the monk really is. In short, he is a holy man who prefers sports, money, and fine food over God. That's the main thing. Friar was another character of this poem. The friar follows, and by now it seems clear that Chaucer has a special interest in church people who so confidently live in contradiction with what is expected of them. Uh, by this friar, another character, we meant here that Chaucer was interested at that time in church people, their behaves, their attitudes, their doings that was not suitable and that was not suiting to the era, and that actually they were showing double faces, the one inside the church and the one outside the church. For the outside, when they were living those virtuous thing, then they were that they had different hurt and they were showing like they are good people. So Chaucer keeps the interest, and Chaucer likes writing about religious people who act the opposite of how they should at that time. The narrator, though, gives no sign of feeling any problem, as when he reports that the worthy friar avoided the company of lepers and beggars. The narrator calls the friar worthy. By worthy here means good, and the narrator is Chaucer. We mean that it means that Chaucer calls the friar worthy good, even though the friar refuses to help poor people or sick people. This is again sarcasm used by Chaucer. Sarcasm is a kind of figure of speech in which it is mentioned, in which that says us about saying one thing but meaning another. We will discuss these parts of speech one by one, and this is very interesting language. You will love it when we start it. Okay, by this point, the alert reader is alert to the narrator's too ready use of worthy, but critics are still unsure of what Chaucer's intent strategy was here. A smart reader notices that whenever the narrator calls someone worthy, they are usually or actually a bad person. So this is what about the figure of speech language that it makes the writing more interesting. The reader or the author, he writes something else, but it means really other thing in reality. We have another character of this poem, that is the merchant and sergeant at law. Let me highlight this so that you may see it clear. Okay. The merchant is briefly described and is followed by the clerk of Oxford, who is as sincere a student as could be wished, poor, skinny like his horse, and book loving. After a short part about a businessman, merchant, we meet a student from Oxford. He's very serious about learning. Okay, don't be confused. Actually, this means that the merchant is briefly described means that Chaucer doesn't write much about the merchant. Actually, Chaucer, when he was moving toward this character, he just give a short description of the merchant. There was a character, I would say, a character present in this poem, and he just give a short description of the merchant about, about his fancy hat, his bird, and how he talks a lot about his business and money. He just give this short description and then move toward another character that here is important, and is clerk. Clerk was the old way. um, in the old days, this meant a student or a scholar. By clerk we mean not like just we say about the clerk in this era, but clerk was a word used for the scholar or students in those days. So Chaucer actually just mean the next person on the list. The first is the merchant, and then comes the next character, that is the clerk. And Oxenford here means, Oxenford here in the bracket it is written Oxford. Oxford, obviously you know that this is the old way of saying Oxford, the famous university in England. It's all about that. What here we mean by, by wished poor skinny like his horse and looking loving and book loving, sorry, is that he has no money and is very thin because he spends all his money on books instead of food. It's all about the clerk Chaucer is talking about. Okay, let's move. The sergeant at law is an expert liar, and with him is the Franklin. Here is another character we have in the poem, Franklin, a gentleman from the country whose main interest is food. Franklin was loving food, and here the sergeant at law is another character. The liar is very good at his job. He travels with a wealthy landowner person, his name is Franklin, who loves eating. It snowed in his house of meat and drink. The Chaucer adds a brief list of 5 tradesmen belonging to the same fraternity, dressed in its uniform. The one is a haberdasher, a carpenter, a weaver, a dyer, and a tapestry maker. None of these is described here or given a tale or tell later. They have brought their cook with them. He is an expert. His skills are listed as. Okay. He had so much food and wine at his house that it seems to be snowing or overflowing everywhere. By snowing here means that the quantity was abundant, too much. 5 working class men are mentioned here, another, and these are so another characters in the poem. Uh, they all belong to the same professional club and wear the same uniform, just like Franklin that we discussed before. None of these is described here or given a tale to tell letter. Chaucer doesn't give them a detailed description or a story in the book. In the Chaucer, the narrator doesn't give it too much, attention, but he just talk about the important things about these wealthy persons. They have a hired cook who is a great at cooking but has an grass open sore on his leg. Let me highlight it further. Okay. As well as some unexpected personal details. The shipman who is described next is expert at sailing and at stealing the wine. His passengers bring with them. He is also a dangerous character, perhaps a pirate. Just like the above characters, a shipman, a sailor is also described here. The sailor is very good at his job, but he steals wine from his passengers and is a violent man. Okay, dear students, don't be confused. uh, you know that Canterbury Tale is a long poem and it has a lot of characters, a lot of settings, a lot of figure of speech has been used in this poem. What actually you have to do is to just keep these characters in mind, the actual description, what actually they were performing in the poem, and how Chaucer described it, how Chaucer narrates about them. We will discuss it in a very clear way, and I will try my best to explain this in very simple English so you might understand it very well. Don't be confused with these things. If you still have any question, just directly ask the question on the comment box, or you can send me directly on my WhatsApp number I mentioned in the description. Uh, in our upcoming lecture, we are going to discuss about further characters. That is our doctor of physics and wife of Bath, and then parson and plowman, and then other some characters, and then about the Chaucer himself, who is acting like a narrator in this poem, and then we will talk about the conclusion of this prologue, and after that maybe next lecture will be taken by this character again, and then after that lecture we will start the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, the actual poem writing, the actual old English, and then we will discuss all the questions about this poem. I hope you understood and you enjoyed today's lecture. You have any question you can ask. I would still recommend you to go to my YouTube channel playlist and start these things from the very beginning, from lecture number 1, so that you may understand. Thank you very much and have a good time.